Hello, everyone. Welcome to Arthritis at Home. My name is Ellen, and I'm the programs coordinator. Today, I'm joined by a fellow doctoral student, or in this case, doctoral candidate, from Arthritis Research Canada and the University of British Columbia, who will be sharing some exciting research as well as what he hopes to do and hopes to find in that research. Welcome, Justin. Thank you for being here.
I really appreciate the invite, Ellen. Really excited to be here as well.
So Justin, I know that you have had, quite a career in physiotherapy. You obtained your bachelor's in science at Cal State University.
Yeah, one of the Cal States. Yep.
One of the Cal States. And then it says you did your clinical doctorate in physiotherapy at Duke University.
Yep.
Amazing. And then you went on to do a post-professional residency in sports physiotherapy.
Yes.
Incredible. So then after all of that, you decided to come back to research.
Yep. Just never-ending student for sure.
I love that. And it's interesting because that's a story of so many of us that we're continuously learning that you were a clinician, you still are a practicing clinician, and that you're doing research. So, tell us a little bit about how you're involved in rheumatology and maybe like how it all started. Why this specific interest?
Yeah, that's a great question. So going through pre-physio school, I was working in a clinic, treated a lot of individuals who experienced a lot of sports-related injuries. And so I saw a lot of the front end things of dealing with rehab, and particularly it was around knee injuries. And so I saw and I got a lot of really great exposure there. Then I went to physio school, and that kind of kept coming up throughout physio school of something I was really interested in. And I was able to kind of carve some of my clinical experiences partly around that. Then once I left physio school, I really wanted more education, more mentorship, specifically within sports, because I was kind of interested in this whole knee injury thing, injury prevention and ultimate recovery. And that's when I went and did my residency, and I got a lot of experience working with people across the spectrum. So it was before their injury, after their injury, all the way through the time they returned to sport. But then I also was exposed to so many people who had injuries years ago, and they were coming back now because they were dealing with aches, pains, difficulty doing just things that they loved, running, hiking, playing, being able to play the sports that they enjoyed at a recreational level, not even a competitive level, just a recreational level, and all due to the injury that they had 5-10 years ago. And that made me so curious as to, okay, well, why are these people who they injured their knee, they did rehab, we ask them, they say they did rehab, so why are they still having problems down the road? Like, what's going on? And that got me really, really interested in things specifically in rheumatology, specifically osteoarthritis, because that's generally what these people deal with. They have a knee injury, and almost 50% of people, when you look at the literature, will go on to develop osteoarthritis, if not at some point sooner than they would have. And so it's something that speeds up this process, and it just made me so curious about it from a scientific standpoint. And so that's where it kind of dovetailed into my my PhD training as well.
Absolutely. I think, you really are on the cutting edge of understanding the condition, which is osteoarthritis, that so many Canadians have, so many,
Yes.
7 million Canadians have it. And we used to, part of the community still believes it's a wear and tear disease, but as we know now, it could be or could have stemmed from something like an injury that we didn't think about. We got injured, we fully recovered, didn't think about it.
Yep, exactly. And the thing with these injuries is, so especially knee injuries, which is a huge burden for osteoarthritis. I think it's anywhere in the 60 to 80% of the osteoarthritis burden across the world is at the knee joint. Knee injuries, and I say this loosely, a young person's injury. It's your 15-year-old kid who's playing soccer. It's the 25-year-old college athlete. It's the high intensity weekend warrior who's, 25, 26, 27. And they're having these major injuries that is just somehow speeding up a process. And they're then developing osteoarthritis or at least developing persistent problems with their knee much, much earlier than their peers, their uninjured peers. And so this is just a huge, huge, huge issue of we've got some young people that are dealing with diseases and conditions that we as a community and as a world have commonly just associated with older age. And these are burdensome conditions. These are things that really impact everybody's life. And so, we're really trying to figure out what we can do about it, because it's a huge issue.
Exactly. And I before we go on to the next question, we asked about your specific project. I just really want to emphasize, and I'm curious about your experiences working in your residency. So I know from my own injury that took me out of my own sport, it's not just an injury. In those critical periods of your life where your identity is tied to a sport, where you saw this in that high performance, when you are unable to participate in sport, it's not just I can't do that sport. It's I'm no longer physically active, because the only way I was physically active is through that sport. I trained for that sport 20 hours a week. Then you lose your identity. So you have the emotional, the mental stress that comes with that. And then you have all of the other disease processes that are going on in your body to heal it. So it's not just I'm injured. It's I'm no longer myself because of this injury. Did you see that in the residency program? Is that like one of the key factors? You're like, wow, this is really interesting that it's not just an injury.
Yeah, we saw it a lot, especially with some of the places I was able to go to during that program catered to mostly high school athletes. And the moment these people were experienced an injury, especially some of these knee injuries, and it could have been any other injury as well, that their demeanor just completely changed, and you could tell that their life view was at almost a crisis point, because they're like, well, what do I do now? Because I've built my entire life to be extremely active, to be in this one or maybe two sports that they now can't participate in. And it shocked me at first, but then as I went along and I read more and I learned more and I interacted with more people, it just made complete sense, because like you said, these people identify so much with that athletic identity, and then it's just been essentially ripped from them. And so that was another reason why I felt like this is something that I wanted to study in terms of the recovery aspects, because I didn't want these people to go through these crises. I wanted them to be able to get back to what they were doing and to experience joy in their activities again, or figure out ways for them to understand, don't worry, there is an end of the road. You will get back to these things. You will reestablish your identity. You will get to enjoy them. And so it was one of those extra little motivations besides the scientific pieces about things. It was kind of those extra motivations of this has a real big opportunity and potential to really help people on multiple levels.
I think that's so well said, and especially the population that you work with in that higher level of sport, and in that critical age when we are trying to figure out who we are.
That's right.
So tell us, what is an ACL? I know it's an acronym that any medical professional is very, very familiar with, but for our audience, what is the ACL? What does it do? How is it injured? And what does that injury look like?
Yeah. So the ACL is what is the anterior cruciate ligament. It's a ligament that's within the knee joint, and it basically kind of crosses the knee joint at an angle. And it's a very, very important ligament in the knee. Now, its job is to restrict, or at least to control, the absolute end ranges of motion at the knee, especially in the forward direction, and some rotations as well. And so it has a really, really important job for stability, keeping the joint together. But also it's a really important piece of sensory information. It helps tell your body where your knee is in space as it moves and grooves as you move and as you run, as you walk, you name it. And these injuries, especially the ACL, they're typically what we call pivoting or cutting type injuries most of the time. They can be injured through direct contact, like somebody hitting you, hitting the side of your knee, landing on you, things like that. But generally, they're non-contact, where the person goes to decelerate or stop themselves and make a move to a side or try to react to the world that's ever changing in front of them. They pivot and they do something, and for some reason the forces going through the ACL at that point are just too much, and it unfortunately ruptures. And so that's why we see it so much in young athletes who play sports like soccer, ultimate frisbee, rugby, football, whether it's American or Canadian. And occasionally even you see it in, you start to see it a little bit more in things like that, or in baseball, where sometimes people are running the bases, they might hit the base just a little bit too weird, and that causes it to happen. So it's definitely an injury that impacts a lot of athletes out there across a lot of different sports.
Absolutely. When you think about it, like how many sports require you to be on your toes, pivoting, changing direction, being light, being fast, accelerating, like all sports.
Yes.
So I know that everyone listening right now knows somebody who has lived through an ACL injury for sure. And from your research, or from the research previously established, is this correct that we know from the research that once you do have that injury, not only is it incredibly debilitating, but then you get muscle weakness, you loss of mobility? Like, what happens post-injury? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's definitely it is a very serious injury, and the medical care for it and the treatment for it and what happens will vary across countries for sure. There's definitely different trends, but what people most of the time experience, you get immediate swelling in the knee. Sometimes it goes away really quickly, sometimes it doesn't. And with that, you get a sense of, for most people, you get a sense of instability, meaning your knee just feels weird and it feels really off, and you take a step and it doesn't feel the same. You don't feel like you know where your joint is, or you can control movements. So people start to have to move a little bit slower. And overall, that diminishes people's functional abilities, their ability to go up and down stairs, walk around, do any type of sporting activity. They certainly can. There are definitely people who can and can adapt really quickly, but on average, most people really do struggle, especially early on. But the one thing that almost universally happens for everybody is there's a considerable drop in muscle strength, especially on the front of the thigh. It happens really quick. And if someone were to go on to have surgery to take care of the ACL tear, which is extremely common, you can also see then another drop in your strength post-surgery, which is not uncommon. But what's really unfortunate is when we look at the evidence and you ask any physio who's treated these people, any orthopedic surgeon, you'll look at these people 6 months later, 12 months later, 2 years later, and on average, the overwhelming majority will still struggle with strength loss. They're still going to be a little bit weaker between sides. And when you look compared to people who have never had an ACL tear, they seem to be definitely weaker than those individuals. And what's even most concerning is in some long-term studies, we only have a couple of them, but I'm talking like 20-year follow-ups of these individuals, they still have strength differences. The injured side is still weaker, which is just crazy. Because again, we would have assumed these people have done rehab. They hopefully would be continuing doing something. Again, we don't fully know why, but they still have strength loss 20 plus years later, which is just a huge, huge, huge problem, because we think that strength loss is one of those kind of predisposing factors for why they develop osteoarthritis potentially a little bit earlier than they might have, or their uninjured peers. So it's a massive issue, and it's been very well established. We know this from the literature. Have this injury, unfortunately, your muscles will get weaker almost always.
Incredible area to be tackling, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the muscle mapping study is kind of a first step to try to understand what is going on there. Like, from a physiological perspective, what is going on there? Justin, can you elaborate for us how you are going about in the process of understanding?
Yeah. So taking that knowledge, taking the thing we know, people deal with muscle strength issues. We said, okay, we do understand there is a lot of evidence and there's a lot of research groups looking at some of the more neurologic standpoints for that. But we said, okay, they're doing that. That's great. They have the ability to do it. We're going to take a different approach. And we thought to ourselves, okay, well, what's the number one determinant of how strong somebody is? Generally speaking, it's the muscle size. And so from that, we said, okay, well, let's look at people's muscle size at certain time points after the injury. But then we thought about it broadly speaking, and we said, well, if these people are struggling to adapt over time or struggling to get stronger over time, maybe there's something going on physiologically inside the muscle that is making it tougher to adapt. Some type of physiologic changes. The thing is, we have no clue what those might be, because there's been literally only a handful of studies that have started to look at this from this perspective of looking inside the muscle. And so with this study, we've taken that approach, and we are using a whole host of different technology to actually go in, take muscle samples, put them on slides, and using very, very high-tech equipment that generally is used with things like geneticists and in cancer research. We are trying to really understand if there's any altered structure or potentially any cellular pathways and physiologic changes that have occurred inside the muscle that might explain what's going on. Why can't these people get stronger? And so it's a really cool opportunity. It's a really interesting approach. We're really excited because, as some of my collaborators have said, like, this is why you do science, because we genuinely do not know the reason. We don't know what we're going to find. And so we are excited to go and explore it.
As I said previously, the cutting edge, right? Like, you are partnering with individuals who have the capacity to look at the exact enzyme that's in the blood, to look at exactly the composition of the muscle, what's missing, what's too high, to really understand the physiology at the smallest level, the finest level possible, to then be able to build your interventions, right? Like,
Yep.
We are doing exercises for ACL injury as physiotherapists, and we know they work, but it's like, why do they work?
Mm-hmm.
Can we improve on them? And are there nutritional interventions that need to be supplemented with the physiotherapy? We don't know. It's crazy to think that, ACL injury is one of the most common, most debilitating injuries to take anyone out of sport, period, whether it's recreational sport, high-level sport, and we don't even know what happens post-injury.
Yeah, no, we don't. And the studies that have been done paint a really preliminary, again, very preliminary, but they paint a picture that shows the muscle going through some pretty rapid changes that mimic or look a lot like aging. They look like a muscle that is just getting a little bit older, a little bit quicker. And that is it's a really interesting finding, but it starts to paint a picture of, okay, if these are the changes that are happening, we really need to rethink some of our interventions, because just standard exercise might not be enough. Or maybe we need to rethink how the exercise is being delivered or being actually prescribed, because maybe we need a little bit of a different approach. So we're really excited to see what we find, and then eventually, once we have the results, take it to the next level and think about what's the next step? What might the intervention look like? We're definitely going to have to partner with some other disciplines as well. It might not be an exercise intervention. It might be nutritional intervention or a medical or completely a medical intervention. It's completely up in the air right now, which is really cool from a scientific standpoint, but obviously very unfortunate because I wish I could provide these answers for people.
Well, you're taking a first step, and that's truly all we can do as research trainees. And I'm very, very excited. I know that you're recruiting currently, so let me know if I'm incorrect, but you're recruiting individuals from age of 19 to 35, anywhere between 6 months to 5 years post ACL injury. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And these individuals have to be able to come to the University of British Columbia for 2 assessments. That's a total of 4 hours long.
Yep.
And if they are interested, they are going to find the contact information right below this video to contact you and to get involved. And I know that, as research trainees, we're incredibly grateful for anyone who participates in our research. And I know that these individuals will also actually find out some of the results and be involved in truly the cutting edge of research.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Of anyone, please share this video, share Justin's contact information. And with that, Justin, I want to thank yourself, your collaborators for your work in pushing this field forward. And I want to thank everyone who's joined us today. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for making this all possible.
Thank you, Ellen. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you highlighting what we're trying to do, helping spread the word, and all the great things that you are doing and everyone with ACE and Arthritis at Home.
With that, thank you, and we'll see everyone on the next episode at Arthritis at Home. Goodbye.